Okay, I'm going to let these gentlemen I'm going to let you guys introduce yourselves and say a couple words about yourself, just to kind of switch it up a little bit. We've all had these panel discussions in events that we've gone to over the years. But let's spice this one up a little bit. Let's throw these guys some curveballs. We can do follow-up questions after questions that they answer or share amongst themselves. You guys are welcome to ask each other questions, however you wish. I don't know how far we'll get through the entire program, but we'll take a stab at it, okay? So I would love this to have some good interaction. So Paul, why don't we start with you? And
Good afternoon. My name is Paul Walsh. I'm the CEO for Newtimes Group. We're the largest privately held sourcing agency based in Asia, and we focus exclusively on apparel for mid to high end, predominantly US brand labels.
All right. Good afternoon. My name is Guido Schlossmann. I'm German. I'm for the last 25 years in Asia, and I'm the president of Synergies worldwide. We are a sourcing organization with 16 offices in 11 countries, predominantly work with the European market, and we are a virtual manufacturer.
Good afternoon. My name is Paul Wright. I've been in Hong Kong for 21 years, most recently with Shop Direct as the managing director for their sourcing operations, covering India, China, South Asia. Thank you.
all right. I'd love to share this one back and forth.
What are the questions?
Okay, you got a question for these guys? No, I'm just joking. So as I said, I've got a list here. I modified a few of these along the way based on some things that we've heard from the speakers here. But you guys are all smart guys. I don't think we'll have a challenge here. But First topic we were going to look into was around connected supply chain. So we've heard just about everybody say something about connected supply chain today. Joel actually spent a good deal of time on it, talking about collaboration, talking about open communication, open information, etc. Obviously crucial. So I just wanted you guys to just give you an opportunity to just comment on that from your perspective, from your actually in-field perspective around collaboration and open communication. And Guido, I know I might start with you. We had a side conversation and we brought up blockchain, which is a concept that we're all still trying to get our arms wrapped around. And so maybe you could start with that, and then if Paul want to join after that, maybe that's a good idea.
All right. Yeah. I don't know whether you know about blockchain, but if you follow the Bitcoin development over the last couple of days, by the way, today it's 17.
Raise that up a little
Okay.
bit. Towards your mouth a little
Okay. If you follow up a Bitcoin, the Bitcoin price today is actually exceeded 17,000 US dollar, and actually this is a cryptocurrency based on blockchain technology. But coming to your question about communication, I think what is really, I think we need to look at it more holistically. What is really the target in our industry which we want to achieve? I think it's about accurate information, and it's about verified information, and it's about efficient communication. And to a certain extent in our industry, we are still in a very analog business. We are communicating via different tools, via spreadsheets, via emails, and we have to trust, and the information are provided by various sources from different countries, and we have to trust the information which is provided to us, which is provided to our customer and to our head offices. So that trust at the moment is to a certain extent bridged by intermediaries such as the Newtimes Group or by us, because we are a third party and we are asked to verify information about the quality of products, about the production status, about a variety of information. But even then, it's still, as I said, very analog. And the challenge is we are in different geographies, there are different mentalities, and it's a question, can we trust this information? So blockchain has recently been introduced, and actually if you follow this up, this is actually a kind of technology which is there actually to to manifest trust by really working with a decentralized ledger and network of information, which is verifying transaction between parties, and it's digitalized. So this is some technology which we could eventually embrace and embed in our industry to have more accurate and more verified information.
I would agree in terms of, at the moment, it's very analog in terms of the way we work and the way most sourcing organizations work, from emails and spreadsheets through to PLMs. I think we are on the cusp of something exciting, challenging, threatening potentially even for intermediaries, either in-house or third parties, blockchain being part of that. There's a lot of data we've seen coming down from customers and the customer side of things. There is also a lot of data in the supply chain currently, and maybe there's potential in that as well. But I think where we are today, there's a lot of change ahead, and a lot of potential with that change.
I think that from a Newtimes perspective, we get to work with many different customers. So I think we've got a very good pulse as to what's happening in the market. And over the last couple of years, I think we've noticed a huge disruption in the industry at retail level. Customers trying to grapple with bricks and mortar, e-commerce, speed. I think one of the challenges that we face is it's actually too much information from too many different sources. It's very complex. It can be very overwhelming. And I think it's easy to make our business more complicated. It's actually harder to make it more simple. And for us, we look at technology or connectiveness in terms of making things more easy. For example, we have strong ERP systems, like CBX can do many different aspects, many different modules. But we also have other specialist, softwares as well, like 3D, for example. How do the software systems talk to each other? And if you enter data once, how can you get that access to the information in a very simple way? So I think for us, it's about making sure the technology that we use actually just makes life easier, and enables us to, I would say, get a much more higher level view rather than get sucked in too much in terms of the detail.
As a follow-up, I don't know if I could do this without. Is this on? Yeah. As a follow-up to using the word disruptive and the disruptions that you're seeing, okay, what if we turn that around? Okay, so we were going to talk about what disruptive innovations are you seeing across the board, and how. But let's think about the disruptions that you're seeing that may actually benefit you downstream, and how far downstream are those?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
So I think one of the technologies I'm really excited about is 3D technology. If you asked me 2 years ago, I would have thought interesting concept, but not really quite there yet. But we've done quite a lot of market research in the last 6 to 12 months on different 3D companies. And I think that's the software we see has some very real, tangible benefits, not just theoretical. Because with 3D, we've now got a chance to, you can't replace physical samples, but you can use 3D to design reiterations. So it cuts down on cost of samples, much more flexibility to make on-the-spot decisions to see something in a 3D environment. And the other part is, for us, we can do 3D digital fittings. So we can take a pattern and we can fit that in 3D. So if there's any mistakes to the pattern, we can correct it. So by the time we do the first sample, it should be correct. Because every round of sampling for our customers is 2 to 3 weeks under the lead time. So every round of samples we can cut out, that's immediately 3 weeks. So I think for us, we see, as an example, 3D technology can reduce cost, increase speed, and make things much more efficient. So that's something we see today. Also,
how far out do you think before it becomes something that's really usable on a week in, week out basis?
I think that a lot of brands are dabbling with it at the moment, doing pilot runs. I see in the next probably 12, 18 months, I think it should be a much faster rollout. And I think the other thing with technology, it's just really developing at an incredible pace. If we talk about AI, people weren't really talking about that 2 or 3 years ago. So I think the technology is advancing very, very quickly. And it's just a challenge to keep up, actually.
Yeah. Okay, great.
Actually,
Guido, do you want to jump in?
I cannot agree with you more. Actually, it's advancing very quickly. We are at the moment in constant contact with startups from Israel. There's a lot of intelligent software coming actually from Tel Aviv, which is applicable to our industry already. Such as
Maybe a
3D
specific one
software,
beyond
but
3D,
even
something-
before, you know,
Yeah.
even before, if you talk about trend analytics to really anticipate what the consumer eventually like, so that you can actually align your design and product development and even production and inventory to what the consumer is most likely to buy. So there's a lot of development and innovation coming, starting from trend analytics. And I agree with you, I think the most applicable area which we have at the moment is really the design, product development and sampling area. There's so much innovation and disruption coming through 3D software, 3D sampling, 3D printing. And I would even say that is so disruptive that it's really changing our supply chain by almost merging 3 chains together into one. I think design, product development, and sampling eventually will merge into one. Because all the software which we are seeing in the market now, they actually at the moment apply to design, to sampling, and to product development. So I think this will, and I think here's also for us, for all of us here in the room, the greatest potential to really simplify the supply chain and to take time out of the entire production circle.
Okay. Paul, do you want to add?
I would agree as well in terms of digitization, 3D. I would go as far as to say that, you know, if you're selling online and you haven't got a physical store, the digital image, why can't you sell off a digital image? It's probably closer to the product that you'll get actually than a sample that's made in a sample shop, that's bagged up, that's shipped over, that's photographed with different color lights, that's then manipulated, it's then dropped online and then looked at on a phone.
Right.
So, you know, someone's buying a dress off something this big, why not use a digital image and go straight? And then the, you know, can you go, you know, does it then impact into the manufacturing of the product as well?
So we're seeing a little bit of that already, right? We're seeing the ability to purchase a product that's not yet actually manufactured and have it delivered within 1-2 weeks time. So how does that technology, which is pretty phenomenal, how is that going to directly affect sourcing in the manufacturing process? Got any ideas around that? Any of you?
I think that you know, with the drive for speed, I think it's going to force us to avoid duplication and more pressure to do things right first time. So within Newtimes, we've got one customer we work with on suiting, and the customer can send us the measurements. They can walk into a tailor in the US, and we can have a suit in their hands within 14 days. So, you know, and it takes a very, you know, it's been quite a large learning curve working with the factory to customize lines to put that together, but it is possible. And I think that, you know, more and more, you know, we look at retail brands in the US today. I think it was sort of mentioned earlier that, you know, it's a very competitive market. And I think with some brands, it's almost like a race to the bottom. It's so promotionally driven. And I think that brands which, you know, really have a much more authentic, strong brand message, I think those are the brands which are simply doing better. And part of that is on personalization, which is, you know, it's whether it's delivering a suit in 2 weeks. We've got, I think there's some footwear companies can actually design footwear and deliver in 2 weeks. So these are not just one-offs. These really can be genuine business models. And if I think about the internet, it gives a chance to also further personalize. Because when you go onto a website, I think Stitch Fix is a good example. Every time you purchase from Stitch Fix, the AI can understand your algorithm of how you purchase and refine that over time. So when you log onto the website, now that, you know, what's on that website is now personalized for you. So it just puts a lot of pressure from the supply chain to react with speed. I think that, you know, the days of redundancy and duplication, I think those days are really going very fast.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Paul or Guido? Carry on.
Yeah,
with that at all?
I cannot agree with you more.
Okay. All right, good. Great. Let's switch gears a little bit here. what I hear people wanting to do, I alluded to this a little bit earlier with Jane, I think it was, in the conversations that I hear, is trying to get post development, right? Post ideation, post product development, and post final tech pack. We're trying to get sourcing and the WIP processes, whether it be from a supplier perspective or from the retailer or the brand's perspective, all the way to the container. We're trying to get a better handle on workflow and calendaring and critical path management. Okay, most of us are still doing it or trying to do it with spreadsheets and manual calendaring and WhatsApp and iMessaging. So. Give me some practical examples on how you think we can actually start to see some realization in better managing our workflow, better managing critical path, whether it be with tools or just an extension of manual processes, or what have you seen practically implemented that's working? Any of you can start.
I'd start this end this time. I think if you start with a blank sheet of paper and you think how's this going to evolve, then where the data is generated, whether that be from the fabric supplier or even further down the supply chain in terms of compliance and testing and regulatory things, and maybe blockchain there starts to play a part as well further down the supply chain. As that data gets generated, I think what you see a lot of the moment is that data gets passed from one person to another person to another person through spreadsheets, through WhatsApp, through WeChat. I think the blank sheet of paper solution is that data goes, is sucked up, and we heard earlier how actually most data now is fairly portable into different applications, and therefore it then sits there and your AI or machine learning starts to sort it, so it's unordered data but it gets sorted. I think then you start to sort of you get real-time data as stuff is happening. You don't need the boots on the ground to sort of be in the factory checking these things because it's coming through, it's got the authenticity. I think that's quite a long way off, and spreadsheets are sticky for a reason, and WhatsApp's sticky for a reason, and emails are sticky for a reason. But I think if you start with a blank sheet of paper and you were modeling something, I think it's taking the data at source and using that and having that available across the spectrum rather than having it input.
Just me to add on to that, I think we see the critical path evolving into more like vendor portals. So instead of using, customers give you a spreadsheet, the factory fills in, and actually the factory has their own different spreadsheet, and they just make you happy with filling your version. In the future, it's a vendor portal that the vendor can collaborate with one version, put the information on in real time, and I think that it's not, the critical path will evolve beyond just on-time deliveries, because when we talk about speed, in many cases, speed, if you want flexibility, you've got to plan for it. So for example, if you've got a real-time critical path and the fabric's just about to dye or to cut, you can still make changes. But of course you have to overlap dip or you have to overstyle, but then you can plan for flexibility. So I think critical path will evolve beyond just a sort of tracking tool to track the factory, but a really powerful tool to help be flexible to maximize sales.
Yeah, and adding to what you just said, I think we more and more need to transform our analogical supply chain into a digital supply chain. By vendor portals is, I would say, at the crossroads, but we have other technologies helping us already, like RFID. And I think we need maybe to put different focus on the supply chain, because critical path management is really identifying and managing important things which are time sensitive. I think what you also mentioned, the product development, design, sampling, and product development part is actually extremely time sensitive. And I think a big part maybe of the critical path management should maybe in future especially focus on this. Very often it focus at the moment when is the fabric in-house, and who's providing this information. But I think it should start much earlier, because this part is so time sensitive and it has so much potential actually to reduce our lead time.
Just that, I think if you add into there the retail systems, so most retailers still have teams and teams of merchandisers looking at sales on a Monday, looking at stock, looking at whizzies. If that data's coming through and is coming down a pipe, and then when the dyeing is and when the cutting is, the system sets the numbers. So today we dye, this is the split between the colours. Next week we cut, this is the split between the sizes. There's not somebody sat there working it out. That demand data's coming through real time. It's hitting the multiple dates in the critical path, and you're getting your inventory as accurate as you can based on real time demand.
I think I need to add something to this. Robert also mentioned this in his presentation about SGS collaboration with CBS. I think eventually we need to have one platform to which we have access, and it's a question how this platform can look like. I was actually just recently in talk about blockchain, and it is somehow still so abstract. Can we have a blockchain for our industry, or how can it be actually structured and designed? And I was talking to some expert, and they were sharing with me, maybe we have blockchain technology between two chains of our supply chain, but all these different blockchains can be uploaded to one platform and consolidated, that we have consolidated verified data. It still sounds very abstract, but I think maybe going forward, that might be the future. We might have blockchains for financing, for verifying raw material, whether it's organic, whether it's sustainable, and then we need to consolidate it on a common platform to which all the supply chain players have access to.
Interesting. So follow up on that. Follow up on that point a little bit. So Paul, we mentioned supplier portal, but a lot of times when we think about supplier portal, we think one-to-one, right? It's I'm a retailer, I'm a brand, I have my 500, 600 third parties or factories and or combination of vendors and so forth, and I have one login, one portal to communicate with me. Do you think that there could be a possibility where you had a single open network where all suppliers, any suppliers, could be invited or could, by their choice, could upload data that was relevant to your needs as an individual retailer and brand regardless, even if you weren't currently using them, okay? Where they could put certifications, technical audits, quality, capacity plan, future, past transaction validation that they've actually been able to make a suit. Right. Too crazy, or is that something that would the suppliers buy into that? What do you think?
I think they would. I think that with technology today, I think the key part is I think open platform can be important, so you can plug other software into it. And I think with the, long ago it used to be very difficult for some countries to access internet, and the speed used to be very, very slow. I think with a lot of the infrastructure improvements, it's now much easier for factories to access the cloud, for example. I think with technology as well, you can really customize, what access you give to the factories. You can get access to, I think that it probably goes back to collaboration as well. How much can brands share with factories to help the factories to help the brands? And I think we have this portal where we have this real-time sharing of information. I think it's very powerful. I think that's definitely something we see becoming more and more, I would say, prevalent.
Yeah, as a vision, I see it as follows. I think it's a combination of internet, a search engine, and blockchain technology.
Please, yeah.
Internet in terms of being completely decentralized, but being accessible, any information about our industry, with the help of a common platform, which is actually our Google search engine for our industry, plus undermined by blockchain technology that we can actually trust this information, because it's all about, in all the presentation today is, we had actually common words. It's about trust, collaboration, trusting a supplier, trusting information. And I think if we can combine it, and I think that's a visionary thing, if we can, internet is already existing, search engines are already existing, blockchain technology is emerging. If CBX can help us to build such a platform, or if there is a collaboration of IT provider establishing such a platform, I think this would be really a future vision.
Be careful what you wish for. Did you want to throw anything else in, Paul?
I think for me the open platform and the collaboration is the key. What it looks like,
Right.
We don't know at the moment. I think that if a supplier has all they're running their factory with a system and a data, that data is the source of the data. That's what they're using to drive things. We then get them to amend, adjust for whether that's through, you have to comply with this. Okay, I'll comply with that by adjusting something slightly into here, into there, and slowly it all becomes slightly tweaked. If there's the trust, and maybe the trust comes through blockchain and it's anonymous or something, but it comes from an open platform, you're getting that data sucked up into there that you can then access. I think suddenly then that supplier is actually, you're saving costs as well, you're speeding things up. So I think trust is important. An open platform rather than a closed platform is the likely route, backed up by potentially blockchain or other emerging technologies that are still being talked about rather than done.
Sure.
But we will see them come through, I think.
Okay, good. Sticking with the disruptive theme, although people think it's pretty mainstream, but I think at the manufacturing level, at the factory level, I think it's disruptive. So ourselves, others in our industry that we compete with, right, we're all been forced, like it or not, to offer a mobile suite, something. What is it? The number of different use cases, right? Whether it be quality or sample management, or further up in the early product development and mood boarding and so forth, right? So lots of mobile. What do you think is mobile really practical? The way that the supplier and manufacturing community looks now throughout Asia, into the African nations that we're talking about, emerging African nations, et cetera, throughout Southeast Asia, et cetera. Is that really practical to consider, or are we just are people like us simply chasing what the market is forcing us to do, and there's not a real use case for it? What do you guys think?
I think that it's, I think it's two ways. If you look at, for example, in China, they said that something like 80% of online sales are through handsets, which is quite an amazing number. So we know the handsets are being used to browse and to purchase. And if I think on the manufacturing side, where we've seen probably benefits of the mobility, is really more about quality. Rather than filling out reports and writing, and then typing those reports up a week later, we see a lot of benefits through whether it's iPads or hand phones, and simply point and click, and just inputting the information once, and then getting access to the data again in real time and starting to make really good decisions. So I think it's, as long as we're quite specific on what benefits this brings, as opposed to just using it for the sake of it. I think there are some specific areas that we find even within the supply chain that can be beneficial. Yeah.
Do you see an expense or a lack of ubiquity, or maybe too much ubiquity, and such being barriers? Or not?
I think cost isn't a barrier. I mean, if you look at, to get a tablet these days, you pay what, 1,1700 Hong Kong. It's not expensive. Every factory now has Wi-Fi. The connectivity is there. And I think the, software is you don't have to pay a lot of money for something which is quite slick. And I think that certainly in our industry, we travel a lot. Different factories, different countries, and I think the mobility part for us is absolutely critical. But again, you need to anchor that with, how do you take that information and then plug it back into your mainframe system, so it talks to everything else. So, Yeah.
Guido?
Yeah, I think it's very relevant. We talked a lot about vision before, but I think this is something which can be applied and is applied already to a great extent, and it can really covers geographical barriers, and it can help us to reduce cost. So this is some real thing for now at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd add to that, you know, again, over 60% of shop direct sales, nearly 70% of shop direct sales in the UK were coming on mobile. Developing nations have skipped technology and gone straight to mobile. So actually the countries we're visiting are probably more mobile savvy than we are going into those nations. I think the next step then is I don't know, you know, Google Glasses failed as a consumer product, but I read an article saying that, you know, they continue to develop it and it's now used in car manufacturing. So, you know, what does AR come next? And is that the next platform as we look ahead?
Actually, even it's the people trying to apply it in the Google Glasses, trying to apply it for our industry by really measuring the weight of a fabric. It is so sophisticated like this. So there's, as we are just discussing, there's so much disruption going on. Actually, in each and every chain of our supply chain, starting with consumer analytics, design, product development, sampling, and production. We have not even talked about robotics. You may have read the headlines that there are some companies in America, they have actually configured and invented production lines which are almost without any manual sewing operation. And this can be actually set up onshore in America, and some people are very interested in this. Actually, some Chinese company want to invest in it, and they want to buy, I think it was in some part in America, they want to build up a big factory with hardly any worker.
Okay, great. Time's gone by pretty quick. Anybody have a question or two out there? You've got a lot of proximity. You got proximity to a lot of power up here. Certainly. Yes, sir.
My question is with the internet growing so fast and the buyer community in Europe as well as in the US connecting so very closely with China, how the world of this Alibabas and all impact sourcing and all of us?
So speed of internet, Alibaba, and others impacting sourcing.
I think it's that's actually a question I would like to answer, because we are a sourcing company, and in fact, you know, there's so many IT tools and platforms where people can actually, which they can use to source a product. So we have to ask ourselves what service we can provide to our customers that are relevant. I think it will be more in the collaboration of the network and having different focus, like on product development, what you mentioned. And I think it will be more orchestrating the entire supply chain, because there's, as I said, sourcing itself will not be really a valuable service maybe going forward, unless you really specialized in something and like a recycled product or sustainable product, which maybe need again a trusted partner, you know, as long as blockchain doesn't exist.
Okay. That's good. Anybody else? Another one? Time for one more? Squeeze in one more? Certainly there's one more out there.
Steve's
I can't be the only one with
Steve's
questions.
desperate for a question here. I can see it.
Sorry? No? Okay. Did you guys want to have...
I would like to say something,
some
because you
closing
mentioned
remarks.
the internet sales platform. I think this is, for me, the most revolutionary and the most disruptive for all of us, because eventually this can completely change the dynamic of our supply chain, and actually making maybe we have to look at the new definition of customer. Because with those sales platform, Alibaba is not only sourcing, it's also a sales platform. Actually, the vendor, or actually Newtimes or Synergies, we can actually become our own retailer. We can actually, through digitalization, we can immediately post a product online on a sales platform anywhere in the world. It can be Alibaba for China, it can be Amazon for America, and with a close strategic supplier collaboration and with having much more intelligence on consumer trends and analytics, actually I can go ahead and produce without maybe carrying the risk of having inventory and sell it directly to the consumers. And I can actually further reduce this risk because we didn't talk about one element. This is social media influencer. Actually, through the entire supply chain and production process, I can use influencer, social media influencer, to actually promote my product before it's ready. And once I post it, I can sell it. And just to give you an idea of what I'm talking about, I came across this here, I came across some social bloggers, and they have actually followers to the number of 2 to 3 million people in special social groups. So if I want to sell 10,000 pieces of a product, and I have the trend analytics, and I know more or less what I need to design, plus I'm using the social media influencer, which can maybe reach out to 3-4 million people, and I just want to sell 10,000 online. It shouldn't be so difficult. So all this technology can maybe completely change the definition of a customer. And that would be very revolutionary.
Just one last comment on that as well. I think the other part, I think you mentioned about the e-commerce retailers, JD.com, for example. I think the important part is we talk about logistics and we talk about connectivity. It's not just about how we source it, but I think increasingly is how we can deliver it. And I think JD.com, I heard a figure that had 99% of the geographic coverage within China to reach a customer within 3 days. I mean, that's so powerful. And I can imagine a future where we're going to have drones delivering product again to people. So I think that it's with the e-commerce, I think it's the sourcing part, it's the understanding the customer's behavioral purchasing. But I think increasingly logistics parts will become more and more important, and those all have to connect seamlessly.
Yeah, we didn't even touch on logistics.
Yeah.
Good point. Okay. All right, well, thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.